going to do a 5-minute max effort. Already very similar to a 5-minute ramp test, but I think it's going to be tougher because we're going to shoot up really, really quickly to, I would say, 115 to 120% functional threshold power, FTP. It's going to be rough. We're going to do a good long warm up leading up to that, so otherwise we're fully warmed up. Spin easy here. Changes. I sold the felt bike. Served me well. And I thought the longer I wait to sell it, the less I'm going to get out of it selling private parties. So I sold it this week to save the money for future bike part goodies, perhaps a pedal-based power meter system. I did have to buy another cassette and happened to get lucky on a deal on Facebook Marketplace. So that's on my other wheel that I need out on the road. And I took the 105s that came with this Trek Domane. Stock wheels. So yeah, so keep spinning easy. Warm it up. Did some thinking and, you know, let's do without the bike gloves on indoor rides. Got a towel, you know? Use this to wipe the sweat off pouring down your face and glasses and stuff. So, yeah. See how that feels. Might feel a little odd or normal. Like, not much difference. Hope y'all are having a good day. If not, you can look at me and my sour face during the main set. 5 minutes. Max effort. And I do a combination. New bike on the trainer, different gearing. So this could be interesting. The felt bike had 170mm crank arms. And this bike has 165. The latest trend in crank arms is to go a little shorter, or maybe significantly shorter than you did before. And I've noticed I'm more efficient in my outdoor rides on sustained climbs, pulls, hard pulls up front, versus we're talking 5mm. Doesn't seem like much, but I honestly think it worked. I mean, I don't have any recorded simulations, but here's one of them. I can remember from memory how I felt the last 5-minute test. So, all right, time for some video.
place of unparalleled beauty and unparalleled suffering. The legendary Hawaiian Ironman is the most grueling single-day sporting event on the planet. A 3.8-kilometre ocean swim, a 180-kilometre bike ride, and a 42-kilometre marathon through the brutally hot mountains. The 2012 edition of the Great Race promises plenty, with captivating storylines in both the men's and the women's events. Alexander versus McCormack has been Ironman's fiercest rivalry of the modern era. The two Aussie veterans, who between them have won the last 5 Hawaiian crowns, will renew their battle. But the next generation is coming, and coming fast. Will 2012 see a passing of the torch? Or do the old dogs still have some new tricks? On the women's side, the departure of unbeaten champion Chrissy Wellington has thrown this year's race wide open. Australia's 2010 champion Marika Cartwright will slug it out with a host of worthy contenders desperate to claim the vacated throne. It will be a day of pain, suffering, mental strength and glory as Ironman immortality awaits. The 2012 World Ironman Championships. Aussies Abroad Special starts now.
Hello and welcome to the beautiful Big Island of Hawaii to our coverage of our Aussies Abroad Special for 2012 World Ironman Championships. I'm standing here with Ironman royalty Jason Bennett alongside 8-time champion Paula Newby Fraser. The first Aussie to ever win the race back in 1994. Greg Welch, guys, we're delighted to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
And it's an exciting time of year for everybody involved in this sport, but particularly for you guys. You must both have such great memories of this race, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. I think October's the most exciting month for me. It's always the business end of the deal. It's the business end of the year, and it's when the Aussies get up most.
And for Paula, for you, this is the race, isn't it? This is Ironman. It's where it started. It's the heart and soul of the sport.
The sport has grown so much internationally, so many more competitors, but at the end of the day, this is where everybody wants to be. I couldn't think of being anywhere else but this big Ironman sport.
And Welshie, from an Australian perspective, we all grew up with it. On the Wild World of Sports back on Channel 9 in the 80s, we saw those great battles. It's become part of Australian folklore.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Kenny Sutcliffe and the Wide World of Sports crew, even Charles Stewart, they used to come over and sort of follow us along in the lava fields, and then one good year in '94, solidified the Australians, had a ride, at the Ironman, and ever since then we've sort of been dominating.
The men have won the last 5, Crowe and Macca between them. Craig Alexander has won 3, and Chris McCormack's won a couple. The rivalry between these guys is something beyond just Australia. The entire sport's fascinated by Crowe versus Macca, 2 totally different characters.
Absolutely. They're such different personalities. Macca is very controversial. He's almost polarizing in many respects. And Crowe, the ultimate gentleman, always so diplomatically correct, and they sort of bring out the full spectrum of rivalry, and there's nothing better here and on the Big Island at the World Championship than a rivalry like that. It's sort of like the Dave and Mark. Now you have that for Crowe.
It's one of the great rivalries in the history of this sport. Are we in for another chapter this year? It's Crowe versus Macca.
Childhood friends who became lifelong rivals. Craig Alexander and Chris McCormack have each defeated the other twice in Hawaii. Macca breaking through in 2007, before Crowe took control in 2008 and 2009. Macca snatched the title back in 2010, before sitting out last year to focus on the London Olympics as Crowe reclaimed the crown. Now Macca returns to the Big Island, and these two great champions saddle up again for
Oh boy.
their final showdown.
Tied by 20 seconds at 110 to 115%.
Both young guys doing the sport, and no one to deal with us. Imagine we hope that we ever amount to Australia's what, 3-time champion, 2-time champion, and go on to have these careers that he's had. But during a career, and you're two very, very competitive guys, very different personalities, and it do clash, and things change, and we're just on different paths.
They've had a great rivalry, and they're not the best of mates, and I get along with both of them well, but I definitely am closer to Chris. You couldn't have two different champions try, and that's what I love about it. I think they're really cutthroat races. They just will do anything to win.
People love Crowley, hate me, and others hate Crowley, love me. It's really two sides. Do we meet each other for Christmas? No. We live a mile apart, but we swim together in the same squad. We're not. We're just acquaintances now. Everyone knows our history. Be it the younger athletes coming, be it the old guys who have raced us in the past, know that these two guys knew each other, raced the same decades. And they don't really get on it. They're not really friendly anymore. I think we bring the best out in each other. I think we both force each other to wake up when the alarm goes on, because we both want to say, better, beat you. And we're just competitive beings, and I respect them for that. But do I think I'm better than them? Hell yeah.
Both now in the veteran category at 39 years of age, they've been racing each other all over the globe for the best part of 2 decades. The big question now is, can one of them claim the decisive victory over the other once and for all?
I think my MO is so much trying to do across the board for the last, 4 or 5 months. It's just been back down and active and doing work. So yeah, it's getting to that time where I think I'm ready to race. Craig has been my most enjoyable rival because he's an athlete I know so well, and he's an athlete who I respect immensely, because when you train with someone and you grow up with someone, you know the characters they are. Bloody tough this man is. He's certainly going to match the intensity and the desperation of your younger rivals who've never won here. And I think I've been able to do that again this year. I still honestly believe my best performance at this racing in general in the sport is ahead of me. And I think I've got to believe that in this record. He never falters. 4 titles, weekly second in Martin Ray, and World Finals, but weekly Peter. I think he's the main man. People are on the fence with this ride, so he's in great shape, or the time off will affect him in a negative fashion. I don't see that. I see him as one of the guys who helped me by beat. I think he's very hungry, very motivated. I think he's gone about it the right way with his preparation. He's spent a lot of time away from home. It's a big sacrifice. And he's dead serious. I'm expecting him to be one of the toughest guys in there.
When you first started coming to the island and you came straight out of short course, you'd set off and you'd open up a big lead, you'd go hard and you'd leave everyone in your wake, and then you'd blow up.
Yes.
Is that the trap this year? Because you're coming again from short course to Ironman, if you'll have the speed, you'll have the power to get away, then it's whether or not you'll have the endurance to finish it off.
And that's how I'm definitely viewing things. It's I'm trying to take myself back to how I was in 2002, 2003. So much power, so much ability to do what I want to do at the early stages. But I want to attack on now at 31 years of age. I have a lot more experience. So unlike that young kid who's just went with it, I'll be able to pull myself back a little bit more. And I often think, 3 or 4 years ago, I wish I would have those 2002, 2003 races back again, knowing what I know now. So maybe I've got that opportunity right now. A similar style of athlete as I was back then, but I've got
I've got my eye definitely on Craig and Chris. They're the main guys. I think anyone else in the field is fairly unpredictable, the unknown, and I think there'll be 1 or 2 unknowns that might come through and cause a little bit of a stir. But generally, I'm just going to be watching Craig and Chris.
When you get to your late 30s, people make it easy for you. They want to make it easy for you. You've got nothing left to prove. You've achieved everything you could ever want. What's the reason to continue? Well, the reason to continue is the same reason that I've always done, is to improve, to better myself, and I just love the challenge of it. There's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser, and we're going to have to live with that forever.
Macca versus Crowley, Crow versus Macca. They're both in the twilight of their career. Well, can they win?
You know what, I think they can be. They are the 2 to beat, Chris McCormack and Craig Alexander. Craig has 3, Macca has 2. This is the rubber match. This is war out here for these guys. But we'll talk a little bit later, about some other Aussies that I want to talk about, because I don't think it's about
The fight here,
There's plenty of young guns coming through to take on Crowley.
Nowhere to go.
We'll touch on those a little bit later in the show. Coming up on our Aussies Abroad 2012 World Ironman Championship special, we'll talk about the women's side of the race. Lots more to look forward to, so stick with us for the Big Island in Life.
lose your head, which is very easy to do when it's super hot and 6-7 hours into the race. That's when people come unstuck. So that's why I've been successful here, because I won't allow myself to give up.
Welcome back to our 2012 World Ironman Championship special here at the Big Island of Hawaii. Jason Bennett alongside Paul Lee Fraser and Greg Welsh. And whilst Crowie and Macca seems to be the headline story this week, there are a lot more men in this field that can come up and take this title. And interestingly, guys, this year, no Chris Leota, the American who's been so quick out of the water and on the bike in the last couple of years. He's been the pace setter. He's not going to be there this year. What difference will that make on the tactical side of the race?
Well, I think it leaves very open for a lot of the athletes, and I think they're probably wondering what's going to happen. But I think after the Ironman 73 World Championship, everybody's going to be looking to Sebastian McKinley go off the front and see what he can maintain on the run. But I do think he will blow through a spot on the bike. Another athlete, first time around the Ironman, Jordan Rapp, never been one to follow the pacing of somebody else. Very prepared, always comes in with a clear plan. So I look to him to also kind of change things up a little bit.
It's going to be very open tactically, isn't it, Greg? We've seen Crowie's always won the same way with a withering run off the bike. Last year, he won differently. He was much more aggressive on the bike. So now everyone's wondering how Crowie's going to run the race. How do you see it?
Like, when I see it panning out, Craig Alexander is the guy to watch. So everybody's going to be, putting themselves around him. And I think there's going to be a large group around that. I think Macca will be in there as well. And all the other Australians. Pete Jacobs is going to come out of the water right up there. But the one Australian that I think that can go with the leaders on the bike, if he chooses to do it, is Luke McKenzie. He's very strong in that discipline. It might hurt him on the run, but we'll have to wait and see. But this year's race is stacked with a lot of very good bikers. But like Paula, I like Sebastian McKinley to be the new Chris Leota.
So Crowie and Macca are Australia's established Ironman champions. Pete Jacobs and Luke McKenzie, a generation then.
My triathlon, it was just something that I think my mum got into first in our family. And, there's a little bit of that fun atmosphere and good vibe around the northern beaches of Sydney. I did a few races here and there as I was growing up, but mostly I did surf lifesaving. But after I left school and, did 4 years of work, then I went into, decided I wanted more of a challenge than surf lifesaving, something that wasn't dependent on waves and had a bit more running involved. So I went into triathlon and found a good group of friends at the swim club that were doing it. It's much more of the art than the science. And, I think that works well for me. I feel I'm pretty creative and, it's just kind of unleashing that creativity and
figure out what's coming up.
Well in training, what hours, what sessions, all of that put together over many, many years, as well as nutrition and race tactics. And then the biggest part would be confidence. I think over the years you build up that confidence and experience, and that's what really counts on race day, as well as mostly again the mental strength is where it comes down to.
What do you draw upon mentally? I know you said you try to cut yourself off and the head down. You have motivational thoughts in particular. What do you draw upon in those times when you say, listen, I'm really hurting here, but I'm still push through it?
Yeah, I'm going to clear my head this year with thoughts of love for the sport, love my friends and family, supporters. Just that I'm very grateful that I've got this opportunity. So I love my power word for the race this year, and when I've used it in training, it just clears my mind. I stop having any doubts about the other top contenders. And I'll be saying that to myself when I hit some dark patches and just try and take myself out of the race a little bit and just enjoy that I've got the opportunity.
Seems a little elevated.
All you need is love.
Exactly.
You've always been one to do things on your own in terms of not having coaches and coaching yourself and doing your own programs and doing your own thing. Why is that?
I really like working with myself. I like analysing it on my own. I like being the boss. I like if I'm tired, I take a day off. And I've learned that really well over the years that when I'm tired, I can take a day off, feel no guilt, and have a really good relaxing day and stretch and recover. And the next day I'll have a better session for it. I'm really good at managing that on my own. If I had someone else telling me, okay, you have to do this session this week, that
15
pressure would get
seconds.
and I wouldn't be the same athlete that I am now. you know, where I can balance that and not go over the edge and balance my injuries, balance
Alright,
my
changing
fatigue
gears.
and energy levels and all of that.
Alright.
And I think, you know, I really enjoy doing it on my own. I get a little bit more satisfaction personally from it. You know, but I have had to employ a little bit of help. I've just asked a mate, Nick Vogel, ex-pro cyclist, for a bit of help on my taper on my cycling this time around. Because it seems just to be my taper that I've always faulted in a little bit on the bike. So I'm hoping to go into this a little bit stronger just because of these last 2 weeks and what I've done leading into the race.
What would it mean to Pete Jacobs doing in 2012 for Ironman?
It would be a dream come true, but you know, I've got another 10 years in this sport, and if I achieved it this early, you know, I would be ecstatic. Yeah, it would really just mean the world and a dream come true.
It's been something that's been part of my life since I was born, basically. You know, growing up in Australia, I've been close to the beach, been involved in the swimming club and around Ironman Australia since I was just a little packer. I had something to do with triathlon since I was born, and you know, it was just a natural progression after Telemetry that went, you know, wasn't going anywhere. People have sort of seen me as a bit of a cyclist now in the sport of triathlon, but I really, you know, I like to pride myself on being strong across the board, and I think that's something that you really want to take into the whole Ironman.
Last year's race really kept into the first year. We can take away from this year.
Probably more so than anything that you've got to take your chances when they come in this race, to pack it like it's just any other race. And I think in the past, maybe inexperience sort of left me a little bit cautious. I didn't really take the opportunity from the pain. There's a few times where I got myself away on the bike in the car, and you know, I didn't commit to those moves. And last year, when I got myself in that position, we got away. I said, I'm going to commit to this. I know I have the physical capabilities now with the progression that I've had. It's just natural that I can improve, and I know I can go better than that night last year. I think now it's getting to the point where I've really got to look at it as more of a mental game within myself, and you know, find just that extra gear mentally, because I know I can put myself, you know, into that top 10. I think on any day I can put myself into the top 5 as well. And I think the difference between those guys that are in the top 5 is they just take that little bit of a extra mental editing. I've been working so hard with my coach back in LA at, you know, putting myself right on that limit where you're almost about to break, and it comes along on the rollerblades, and so you've got to dig that little bit deeper, do it a little bit harder, and get the rest of that session done. And I think, you know, I'm going to draw on those times where I thought my day was done in those training sessions, and I got through it and realised that I do have another gear, or not necessarily another gear, another mental level that I can, you know, I can deal with this pain, and that's what it's going to take. I'm just going to go out there and just dig as deep as I can and embrace it and enjoy the day. And I think that's the athlete who's going to win this race.
What would it mean to win the Warmup?
I would be over the moon. I mean, that would be the pinnacle of my life. You know, there's nothing that could really, maybe the day I got married would be up there with it. I just, you know, you couldn't describe it until it happens. And, you know, I think it would just mean the world to me. You know, just everything you've ever overcome in your life, to finally win the one thing that you just aspire to be anything like that. That was it.
You think about that, you dream about that often.
Every day I wake up, I mean, I surround myself with reminders every day, you know, before I go to sleep, when I wake up, why I'm doing it. So, I mean, yeah, I think about it every day.
So the women's race now, and unbeaten Chrissy Wellington has dominated this event in recent years. She won't be in the field, she's retired from the sport. What does this mean for the women's race sport?
Well, I think it really opens things up, because everybody's always been watching the 58, but there were a lot of very good performances because these post last year's races. So I think we can look to Leanne Kay, who had a very strong race. I think Rachel Joyce is coming in with a fantastic time. Everyone is expecting Carolyn Steffen to do great things. Rebecca Keith comes back from Australia, and if she's in shape and healthy, I think that she could be a big factor, and then of course there is Marty Hawkray.
So Marina won it in 2010 when Chrissy pulled out for Lewis. So she won it, but it almost had a bit of an asterisk on it. This one would mean a lot for me if she could pick it up.
Yeah, I think so. I think Maria Carpenter is really ready for this race. Her standings this year hasn't been a good year for her, but she's had some, wonderful results. And I think that finishing off the year with a win here in Ironman will really solidify, her as the number one champion and one of the girls to, really look out in the future. But I think that, like Paula, Caroline second, Rachel Joyce and Maria Carpenter are the girls to really clearly indicate with a strong end.
Rita Cartwright, well known for her withering run over the last couple of years, has been a real strength. She's been working more on her bike with the new coach. The other girls on the run league as well are starting to get a little bit closer. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out.
I think it's going to be fascinating because between Christy and Marinda, they definitely upped the level of the women's marathoning. So Leanne McKay, Rachel Joyce, lovely girls now have broken the 3-hour barrier. So she can't feel too comfortable with her run because I think those the gaps. So now the question is, has her biking come up enough so that she's not left hanging out there having to make up a big gap?
So 2012, a great opportunity, but also a great challenge for Marinda Carpenter.
Last 12 months have been kind of very different to me. I left my long-term coach, Sue Lindsay. I've been with her, I think, almost 7 years and moved on from her just because I wanted, some different insights, some different training techniques. I really wanted to sort of focus on cycling. I think in the past couple of years I've been very successful and had a fantastic one.
Felt like my heart rate was way up.
Talk to some other experts, especially in the cycling field. We've parted amicably. I mean, there's a lot of love between Siri and I, and I may end up working with her again in the future, but I wanted to step away at this point and really, learn about riding with power, how I'm either
Definitely a different sensation.
and there's a lot of different ways to become the best. And I think
On the pedals
as you go along,
with the shorter cranks.
you're always wanting to learn more things and learn new things to allow yourself to continue to make the steps to becoming better.
Easier? Hard to tell. You're pushing close to 120%. Best you can, or at least 115, which I did.
It always feels like the city's gone, now there's an opportunity. I think
I
before,
think I landed around 117, 118
I certainly went in
watts.
and was like, okay, if everything goes right.
Percent FTP. That 5-minute interval.
I'm
gonna do some math.
Everybody's like, well, first place up and down.
FTP test I did a couple days ago, 3 days ago.
I guess probably the major.
I do these two tests,
First of all, Carolyn Stephan.
20-minute and a 5-minute, to smooth out the power curve.
2 or 3 Ironman events.
Most of the time, you can just use the 20-minute interval to define your zones. It's 5 minutes.
Also,
Average.
Rachel Joyce
Power
won a couple of races.
gets it a little bit more dialed in.
Her progression over the years has been continuous. So I think she's been top 5 for the last couple of years, but just sort of flying under the radar. I think she's one to watch. Also, Leanne McKay, she was third here last year, and she, hasn't had a great year, but she always seems to get it right when it matters most.
Having won it in 2010, coming second last year, how much was winning it again in 2012 and again in the title this year?
I love it. I try not to think about it too much because, I've got to make sure I just make the steps at this point to get to the start line and maybe get through that race. I plan the whole year around it, and then I think about it daily. Every hard session I do, this race is in the back of my mind. So this is my whole motivation. This race and this race only. And to win it will be nothing short of amazing.
So Rita Cartwright, just a super runner. Paula, in previous years we've seen her mow through the opposition. What sort of gap can she afford to hit initially?
Well, that's an interesting question because I would say probably 5 to 6 minutes. If it's current second, maybe a little bit more, but I think some of these other runners like Rachel Joyce has upped her game, Leanne McKay, I'm not sure she can give up more than 5 or 6 minutes. However, the women do have their own stop this year, 5 minutes after the pro-man, so that may change the dynamics just a little bit.
You mentioned, she's been working on her biking, because obviously she's aware of the fact that everybody's going to try to attack her on the bike and try to open up a big gap.
Yeah, given that Marina Humphrey has a stronger bike this year, I think that she can give up about 10 minutes to Caroline Steffen. She can only give up that much. You know, she ran for 2:53. Caroline Steffen in Ironman Melbourne earlier in the year, you know, she made a boost to her running. She brought her times down by a lot. And I think that here, she's come to run around about that 3 hour mark. So, you know, 7 to 10 minutes for Marina Humphrey off Caroline Steffen.
It's going to be a fascinating tactical battle here in 2012 on this brutal but legendary course. And after the break, we'll take a look at that course in more detail. We'll also talk about the keys to success with former newbie Fraser and Greg Welsh. They've won 9 between them. We'll hear from our Australian stars as well as our Aussies Abroad World Ironman Championship special continues.
Joel Triathlon, one of the first.
15 minutes,
Got 375
75 to 80%.
So this is our holy grail.
High zone 2,
This is the race.
low zone 3 heart rate.
Welcome back to our 2012 World Ironman Aussies Abroad special coming to you from Big Island in Hawaii. Jason Bennett alongside Paul Newby Fraser and Greg Welsh. Let's talk about this course because this race is unlike any other. Aside from the mythology, just the sheer physical brutalness of this day is unlike anything else.
Well, it's very interesting. I think one of the most important things about the course is coming in ready, expecting the worst, hoping for the best, but being ready for any kind of weather. Now, when I say weather, it's always hot, it's always windy, but it's the degree of heat and windiness that can be thrown to you. Things can be so different and change so dramatically through the course of the day. So going out there, first of all, and being ready to handle the worst crosswinds, the worst headwinds, all the best of conditions is really important. I think everybody comes in expecting to be tough, and that's the right way to go because sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. But also learning how to break down the course into those segments. You can think of it as, in its entirety, it's just going.
And Welsh, what are the specific areas of this course that you've got to get right in order to win this race?
Yeah, I mean, there are different segments. I think that the one of the swimmers get off to a great start. You know, if you're a strong swimmer, start in the middle somewhere. You'll get off to that fast start. If you're not, stay to the side. On the bike, I think that the first 15 kilometres is very important in this race. It's hilly and it's hard, and you don't want to go too hard too soon because that could creep up on you at about 85 to 90 kilometres on the bike course. That is the turnaround. When you turn around in Harbury, it's a very sharp downhill for a little bit, and you can spin out of control. Sometimes you run out of gears. The wind and the elements, like Paul was saying, are critical. It is brutal out here. Sometimes you can have wind up at 45 kilometres an hour, and it is hot out there, 90 degrees, but it can be over 100 degrees Fahrenheit on the road surface. So you have to break it up into little points. And then on the run, Palani Hill on the way back, and it's about 10 miles or 16 kilometres. You might feel great at the bottom, but by the top, like Maka says, you could be blown. It is a very difficult race.
At a race like this, I have the utmost respect for the conditions and err on the side of caution because it's a fine line between victory and sitting in the gutter, 6 miles from the finish. I think now if you want to win, you've got to take a few more chances early, and you just can't wait for the marathon anymore. There's too much depth, and you know, allegiance is too format. They're partnerships of convenience, and that's just racing. It's human nature, and you have to be ready for it. You want to stay as close to the front as possible.
You're going to have bad patches in the race, but you have to know that they're going to pass. You have to be ready for them to pass, and as soon as they feel good, they can push again. And it's that readiness to go when you feel good. That you've just got to be alert all the time mentally. Checking your body, how it feels, and once you start to feel good again, pulling the trigger at that point.
If this was tennis, I'm going to play to try and win this match with unfair speed. Watch these guys making mistakes as they try to get in and really capitalise on those mistakes that they do make, if they make them. And if I'm in a position to pull that trigger, I'll definitely pull it.
There's going to be a couple of dark horses that will go off the front of the bike and push the pace. But it all depends on the conditions. So I think race tactics will go out the window if there's certain conditions on race day. If it's an easy day on the bike, everyone's going to be able to stay together. And if it's a tough day on the bike, it's going to split up also. And if it's hot on the run, guys are going to fall away very quickly. And if it's cool day on the run, it is going to be a faster run and more guys are going to hang in there.
All I know is that on the way home from Harvey, coming back over that hill at Kauai, that's when the real race starts. That last 40 kilometres is the wind in your face and it's predominantly uphill. And you can still get to 5 to 6 minutes open up.
That's the time when life is increasing to really start to focus and really get it
So we know that this course is unlike any other, but really guys, the whole race experience is like any other, isn't it? This is the pinnacle of the sport, the World Championship, and the entire build-up is something that needs to be known.
Oh, it's amazing. This is the World Championship. You know, the athletes have to be meticulous, not only in time management, but the way that they go out there and spend their last moments, you know, training for this race. It's very important that the athletes just make sure that they put their feet up and rest and just take everything out of it, and then they stand the best chance to win the race.
It's a legendary race, and it's the slice of Ironman immortality. This, the race that every Ironman dreams of winning.
The original triathlon, one of the first. And here on Hawaii, there's so much, you know, culture and history. It's such a special place. The place there is so raw and just you think about it. That's what really makes this race the pinnacle of our sport.
Triathlon, this is it. This is our holy grail. This is the race of the year. So for all the guys who are looking at winning the Santa girls, every stampers here, every media person's here, I'm doing things like this for the race and the whole thing. Oh, yeah. Good for you. So these are the things that weigh up. It's time. It's a hot place. It's very, very difficult to get around town. It's a small town. You know, these things weigh on you after a while. And you see it with the new guys that come in, because it's so exciting to hear it. You know, your young guys who are coming to Mackenzie, young Aussie guys, these guys probably not ready to win the race, but definitely in the mix to change things up. And, you know, they can be the biggest nightmare for a guy trying to win the race, because they do things you don't want them to do. You need to be like, come on, let's get the pace a little bit more control. And you've got to let Mackenzie slamming it down, riding the house down, and you don't want it to go like that. It can be play havoc for guys like myself who are looking at Pro, or looking at Andreas and these guys. And man, if they go with this move and the roots to these guys, they really don't want to. You know, so they're guys that can change they're the wild cards. They can change the mix up. And they win it. It'd be great if they win. I don't think they're quite there yet, but they can definitely change that. Andy Greenwood, his fourth crack at it, he's had a third, second and third. He's going to be feeling the pressure, no doubt. The Germans want him to deliver the victory. I think Andreas is in a real critical point, because a lot of the Germans are starting to say, hey, time to win this thing. You know, we had great champions before the Australians came along, and we had Paris, and the others were good, but we got to win, these guys won. I think he's starting to feel that pressure. I think this year he's a lot smarter in his career. He has an over race, and I'm curious, because he's been quiet. I'm curious to see how he's going. I think he'll be very, very dangerous. Marino Barnacker, the Belgian, who was good in 2010. He had a shocker here last year. He's had a fantastic prep. I think he's going to be very, very strong. I know he's been on the Big Island for the best part of a month, away from his children, his child, so he's going to be hungry. He's going to, you know, he's had 4 months to stew on his performance last year, and we know that's going to get him up every day. It's only 7 times, but a lot of people, you know, 7 seems to be a magic number here. But no 7 to win this same race, and there was 7 to win this race, but not balance 7, so Marino's only 7 for 10 years, so the experience. He knows what to expect out there. He's definitely got the wins, and he's a guy I'm looking at closely. I think Pete Jacobs, we saw it last year. I picked him last year before here in the second place. I think he's really starting to mature as an athlete. Pete is an athlete, he raced a lot of emotion, and I expect him to be strong. He'll play a tactical game. He's on the fastest marathon here the last 2 years. Why would you back that as a record in the race?
It's the race that can instantly make your career. Guys, you've both been there and won it. What's it like? Does it feel different when you're in a position to win this particular race in front of all people?
It's absolutely different because of all the external pressure. So the nerves are always a little bit higher, and if you allow your expectations to rise with your nerves, it can be crippling. And I can tell you from experience, coming in feeling the pressure is like a weight. So I think the biggest discipline to all the athletes, never mind the trainers, is being able to keep it in perspective and know that at the end of the day, it's all right.
Well, if you have it, it's changed your life.
It changed my life, you know, winning the Ironman as the first Australian and the first non-American. It was pretty special. It didn't change it in the respect of becoming an instant millionaire, believe me, but it changed that I was the Ironman champion. It was a weight off my shoulders. It was something that I set myself, you know, the goal of doing when I entered this sport as a professional.
Well, always in readiness, it's time to go. It's showtime. The 2012 World Ironman Championships. For those of us who love Ironman, it's Christmas morning. The wait's finally over.
It absolutely is. This is Christmas. Every athlete in the world knows about this race. There's so much history. Everyone looks to it. There's always this how it will unfold.
You know, I think that Santa Claus is going to bring multiple medals to Australia today. It's going to be a fantastic race.
Paul and Evie Fraser, Greg Welch heading to the commentary box for all the action after the break. The 2012 World Ironman Championships. Enjoy the race, everyone, right here on ESPN. Welcome back to our coverage of the 2012 Ironman World Championship, coming to you from the big island of Hawaii. Jason Bennett alongside Greg Walsh and Paul and Evie Fraser. The pro athletes soon to enter the water and prepare for the swing leg of this great race. Here's Phil Liggett, the horse of cycling, with more of the swing.
The 2.4-mile swing begins on the east side of the Barrow Pier, roughly 60 yards from shore. The swing course is an elongated rectangle, 1.2 miles long and 100 yards wide. Athletes swing south in a clockwise loop, keeping markers on their right-hand side as they make their way to the turnaround point. Lane lines will mark the channel to the swim exit and the stairs into T1.
Thanks, Phil. 1,900 athletes from all over the world, including 243 Australians, preparing for the start of this great race. And Greg Welch, attention here as we look at three-time champ Craig Alexander. It's palpable. It's unique. This is what this sport is all about.
Yes, it really is. The atmosphere and tension of race morning. Yes, good old race day. I miss you. What you must have to mentally prepare for, in yourself is the impending pain, the nerves, and the anxiety without wasting too much energy. Let's listen to really calm through.
Your mind has to be 100% willing and ready to hurt. Anyone who says it's just another race is full of crap and just trying to pressure off.
There's no doubt about that. The mental approach on race morning is something very unique and different for each athlete. The tension is just a little bit higher. The nerves are just resonating that much more. You have to keep going back down and ground yourself and know that you have prepared. These athletes know they've prepared. Many of them have been here before. They all know how to get through an Ironman.
Huge crowd. There's Faris El Sultan, one of just three men in this race who has won here at Kona. There's Frederick Van Leer. Big crowd. Greg, this is in itself unusual. It's the only race of the year we have these sort of numbers standing by.
Yeah, one of our pre-race favorites there, Caroline Steffen, and you've got 50 of the fastest men in the world, 30 of the greatest women athletes, all qualifying. Marina Van Hoornacher now entering the water.
Craig Alexander knows this feeling.
I can sit on my couch in Australia and February and close my eyes. I can smell pain. I can get myself to a place where I feel like I'm about to go off in 5 minutes.
So are there mind games taking place out there, or are the athletes so locked in? Here's what's going through Macca's mind.
I just like to present that feeling that life is good. This is my house and I've done this a million times and this is just another day in the office.
Really is another day in the office for these guys. They've trained for now for over 6 months for this one race. Craig Alexander there, you can see the focus is really, starting to set in right now, and they are almost set to go.
They absolutely are. The professional men getting ready to start at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, which is very unique to see the men start first. This is the first year the professional women will be starting separate of the professional men. So the top 50 in the world kicking off here on the men's side. The women will be getting ready to start 10 minutes later.
And while she mentioned the pre-race shows, if you're a strong swimmer, you like to get up, centre, out the front. If you're not so strong, get over to the side.
Over to the side, get some clear space so that you can know where you're going. You're not getting hammered by too many other people. I mean, that is a little bit of anxiety, itself. People can sort of end up with a panic attack or something like that. If you don't have space, you don't have room to move around, then you're asking for trouble.
Meanwhile, back on shore, it's time for the age groupers to take to the water. More than 60 countries represented, with more than 1,000 rookies lining up for their first shot at the Big Island, and they're going to get some good old-fashioned Kona swell, Paula.
Yes, they are. If the winds are predicted to be fairly high today, the mountain to their side is looking clear. That means the winds are coming up. You see the faces of these athletes as they enter the water. They have trained, some of them for their lifetime, wanting to get to an event of this size. It's all the tension you see them. You've never seen a group of faces look quite the way they do out there.
And it is unique, Welsh. You can't ride the Tour de France with Cadel Evans. You can't play Wimbledon with Roger Federer. You can start on the same start line as the greatest Ironman in the world.
That's what's so unique about the Ironman Triathlon. You can see 3-metre swells coming into Kailua Bay right now. Got a big swell during the week, but it's not going to be too much of a problem for our athletes here because they swim straight out to sea where not much swell is actually going to get into the bay.
All right, well, this is the age group race that's now underway, and to be honest, this is one of the most unique and impressive looking sights in sport ever. Just take a look at that. Can you imagine what it's like to be in amongst these athletes? So many of them from all over the world here to challenge themselves against the best.
The adrenaline, the arms, the legs, very carefully, Roche, you can get clipped.
Made over 1,900 athletes here just fighting for their own space in the Pacific Ocean. You know, I call it the washing machine. I'm the rinse cycle.
Swimming in the ocean, very different to swimming in the pool. Here's Phil Liggett with the science of the swimming.
When it comes to the 2.4-mile swim of the Ironman World Championship, athletes rely on equipment and technique to gain a competitive edge. Swimsuits designed to mimic shark skin slice through the water and compress body circumference by up to 5%. But technique is even more important. The alignment of the body as it rotates is key. Athletes use twice as much kinetic energy moving through the water on their stomach as they do on their side. Rowing from one side to the other transfers the power from the rotation to the propulsive arm, allowing for a more efficient stroke. But the biggest advantage? Drafting. Swimming behind the person ahead of you. Drafting provides energy saving with 18 to 25%. Energy that may prove useful later in the day.
Just over halfway through the swim, American Andy Potts and Estonia's Marco Elbert have broken away at the front of the field. Potts, the strongest swimmer in this race, having finished 4th at the US Olympic trials in the 400 IM before going on to compete in the Athens Olympics as a triathlete. So no surprise at all to see him setting the pace in the water.
Andy Potts, one of the greatest Ironman swimmers over the past decade. You know, just announced some of his stats, but I tell you what, this guy can also fly and run.
Andy Potts out in front in the men's. There's another American, Amanda Stevens, leading the women's race. Earlier this year in Germany, she set the Ironman swim record, and just as she did a year ago, Paula, she's opened up a gap from the rest of the women as well.
Yes, Amanda is having a great swim. She was had a great performance early last year, and I think she has come back a lot more determined to see her performance all the way through this year and not just in the swim lane.
Status quo as of last year. Andy Potts leading for the men, Amanda Stevens leading for the women. Marco Elbert having a good swim, and as we can see, Welsh coming into the Kailua pier here. Andy Potts just starting to pull away.
Marco Elbert is one of the greatest swimmers in his own right, but Andy Potts noticing now that the gap is not as much as it normally is at the end of an Ironman swim. So Andy wants to get out of the water, run up in the transition area, limit velocity, the amount of time that he's lost to the other athletes by having a great swim, stick it on the bike and get up the road.
Andy Potts be first out of the water. Marco Elbert, you can see in the background, closing in on him about 20 seconds behind.
Well, Andy Potts loves this position. He likes to be at the front. Earlier this year, he went head-to-head with Pete Jacobs, came out to swim at the Ironman Lake Placid in July, and he took that race to the front, and that's where he stayed the entire day, beating one of the race favorites. As you look at him as he comes through transition, knocking over one of the volunteers, there is no time to waste for any of these athletes as they make their way out of the swim. They want to get on the bike and get out there and get cracking right away.
Marco Elbert out 21 seconds behind Andy Potts with a huge chase group behind, including Craig Alexander, who's had a strong swim, and fellow Aussies Dave Duller and Pete Jacobs. They'll arrive in transition about a minute behind our race leader Andy Potts.
And it won't be too much of a deficit. They're usually used to a little bit more than that. Andy Potts is a great swimmer, but this chase pack here, you can imagine that all the favourites are in here. Craig Alexander and Macca and the rest of them. I would imagine that Sebastian Kimmel is a little bit further down. But now Potts has got himself out of the change deck and out onto the bike course, and now we'll see our favourites just coming out of the water.
Craig Alexander will be very, very happy with the swim, Paul. I mean, he'd be right there and thereabouts. It's a great start for him.
This is a tremendous start for Craig, and you know as he comes out, he will be looking around himself as we see Andy Potts heading out of T1. These athletes are going to look around and see who's in that group. There are certain athletes that are keeping an eye on. Chloe's going to want to know if Macca is out the water in that pack, if Pete Jacobs is out the water in that pack, if Andreas Raylet in that pack. So they're coming through their bikes, and believe me, they may be running to their bikes as we see Pete Jacobs right in there with this lead pack. He's looking around, and he will know who is getting on the bike with him. He will know who is around him. They
sprint as Dave Scott, way back in 1980, has led out onto the bike and won this race. The chase is on with Andy Potts holding the lead over just 1 minute. Here's Chris McCormack a little bit behind.